Hey guys, Paper Pig Golf here, and it's basically been the entire season since I did a video last. And the main reason that occurred wasn't because I stopped playing golf or I got tired of making videos. It was because my license ran out on Adobe Premiere, and I really wasn't sure if I was willing to pay like $1,000 to get going again, and I really didn't have the time to learn other video editing software. So the reason I'm able to make a video now is because around about a week or two ago, Amazon had a great deal on Adobe Premiere Elements. Now, of course, that's not going to be like a fully fledged Premiere, which I'm used to, but it's close enough. A lot of things are the same. It doesn't have as many features, like I had to play around with the audio and stuff like that, but it's actually got all the basics that I need for now. And it's fast. I also tried Coral Video Ultimate or something like that, and that seemed pretty competent, but the thing that irked me about that was actually everything was quite slow. That was on sale too for $30. You can actually trial that one out, so depending on how you feel, it might actually be good. I've got a very fast computer, and as I said, I found that to be pretty slow. So I doubt you'd end up experiencing something different to me, but maybe you aren't so concerned about the speed difference. And it's a good option, but hey, Elements is for twice the price, like $60, $70. I'd say it's pretty good. It comes with a sort of a Photoshop Elements version as well. Anyway, so I'm back to making videos. I have been recording videos of my range sessions throughout the year. So one of the other videos that I'll probably make up for is basically a year in review in terms of my swing changes. No, it's not going to be a lot of fun for everyone else, but it's just, you know, there's a considerable difference from where I started the season, where basically there are problems in every aspect of my swing. When I left off last, I was using a ZEP on day one to fix my tempo, and I gotta say, that totally worked. So I'll probably get a video out there with regards to that. I've still got a lot of footage. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it all. I definitely wanted to review exactly what changes I've made, and I do go back to those earlier ones, and it's very, very cringeworthy. I've received a lot of YouTube comments where people are like, oh my god, that looks awful, and you know, that's kind of the point. You know, I'm sort of bearing myself out here. I mean, this is my first season, and you know, I'm not going to be good, and that's kind of the point. And that's one of the problems with golf. It's a very intimidating sport, and sort of bearing everything and getting out there and just saying, you know what, nobody is happy with their game. That's something I've discovered. Nobody's happy with their game. Now let's just try to improve and not worry about, you know, your ego or something like that, or it's like, oh, you're crap or something like that. And I'm making videos because I'm bad at golf. I'm not trying to teach anyone anything here. I'm just like, these are my experiences playing golf. So before I left off, I joined a traveling league. So there's basically a tournament every month. And I established my handicap at around about 29 or something like that. But that wasn't genuine. Basically, it rounded down to about 27 by the time I got into the second tournament. So, you know, that's high handicap territory, absolutely. But there were things that were working, things that weren't. But, you know, it's enough to take a peek at basically 100, which a lot of casual golfers out there are pretty happy to do. Throughout the year, I continued practicing just about every single day. I'd only not make it out to the range about, you know, one day a week for the entire season. And even then, you know, even if I wasn't practicing, I was actually on the course, I was doing something. So I played a lot of golf this year, practiced a lot. I think I improved a lot, but I'll save perhaps towards the end of the video like how much that improvement really went through. So I went through the league. The league started off a little rough for me. I was the first tournament out. There was a guy there who wasn't actually part of the league, he was just visiting. And he was a bit of a jerk off, to be honest. Like on the second, he knows I'm new, and on the second tee off, apparently I teed off like a few inches in front of the tee box. Yes, that's a shitty thing, but if you notice that before, and I've read articles about this, if you notice this before and you don't tell the guy before actually tees off, you're being a real jerk off, and I'd totally do that. I mean, it's a very easy thing to mistake, because when you get up onto the tee box and you're the right-hander or a left-hander, you're only looking at one of the tee markers. So depending on where that other tee marker is behind you, you might actually be in front of the tee marker by like an inch or something like that. These days I'm back by about like 2 or 3 feet, but back then I was just putting it right on the line effectively, and I apparently was in front of it. I thought that was a real jerk off move. In addition to that, I was using how do you call it? Sorry, where you use your finger and you use the finger's aim point. So I was using my feet to judge slope. And like on the third green, he tells me, oh, you're not allowed to straddle the golf ball like that. You're not allowed to straddle the line. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. I see basically all the pros doing this. No, you're not allowed to do that. It's a penalty. And I'm like, okay. So then all of a sudden, the rest of my round, I'm having to putt with basically something I haven't practiced before. And that is like trying to read the greens with my eyes, which I'm not a great putter to begin with, but that was kind of infuriating. Subsequently, I found out that you can absolutely straddle the hell out of your line. You do whatever the hell you want. You're just not allowed to purposefully stand in your line. Now, someone could say, well, if you don't know what your line is, how do you know you're not stepping on it? Well, if you don't know what your line is, then someone could hardly accuse you of standing on your line on purpose. So that is what it is. I'm still a little miffed about that, but I mean, this is the kind of thing that puts people off golf in general, is these people who are far more mature, they've been playing a long time, and they don't actually know the rules, and they'll screw you up despite the fact they don't know the rules. I've seen many times already, actually, in subsequent rounds, where people still don't know what to do on red stakes. Like, They think that one, you have to find your ball in red stakes, otherwise it's a lost ball. That's not true. If everyone saw it run into the red, there's a rule in the rule book saying if it's absolutely sure that it's gone into the red, then it's gone into the red, and then you just drop the ball behind where you think it should be. If you find your ball in the red, you don't have to play it out of the red. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So you've got a lot of options once you're in red stakes. I'll probably do an entire video on that, but that is just silly. I saw someone in match play have to hit out of like basically in the deepest part of the forest, just so that he could not incur like another penalty or go back to the tee box, despite the fact he'd crossed over the red. He didn't have to play out of the forest. And he had also incurred a penalty as well out of having to play out of the red in the forest. It was just craziness. So as a beginner, read those rule books, because when you get out there onto the field, you've got a lot of these people who've been playing golf for many, many years, and they don't actually know the rules, because they've just been playing their entire life. They've never actually looked at the rule book, and some of these things will hurt you. So in particular, what to do on red stakes and yellow stakes. I might make videos on that. What to do with water hazards. What to do with cart path. So even that is a little confusing at times. I saw a crazy video of Jordan Spieth with standing water and stuff like that. So grounds and regulation, standing water. I've also learned, and I've traveled a bit throughout the year, I've also learned it's extremely valuable to make sure that you know the local course rules, because usually the local course rules are there to help you. It's almost never the case that the local course rule is there to make the course harder. So for example, many courses I've seen with lots of fescue and very deep brush and forest, that as soon as it's out of the rough and into that stuff, they just say treat all of that stuff as red. Simple as that. Just it's all red. So if you can hit out of it, you hit out of it. If you lost your ball into it, then you just take a drop near where it went in. Very beneficial rule. I played in Australia last month, And in Australia, they have a lot of rules normally about protecting the fauna, so the trees and brushes, as well as your own risks. So, for example, exposed roots. So a lot of trees, brushes, and exposed roots, you're actually allowed to take a 2 club length drop from, so that at 1A, you don't break your wrists on exposed roots, and 2, so that your swing isn't impeded by the tree or the bush. Now that sounds like, oh, that's very favorable for the golfer, but the reality is they're trying to protect their trees and their brushes, which are typically native, native flora in Australia is protected. And it's just part of the course, and it's not USJ slope rating and stuff like that. So basically, look at your local course rules. It's typically there to help. Probably the most important ones. So this year, as I said, playing in the league. Earlier in the season, we went to the Seattle Golf Expo, and we met someone there from the Fairwood Country Club. Now, I was looking into country clubs at the time, and I wasn't really into the idea of like a stuffy country club, but I had been reading about just basically executive memberships, and this country club had one, and it's a fantastic country club, Fairwood Country Club. It's perhaps not prestigious, so not everyone knows it in and around Seattle. However, the food is absolutely incredible. It has a course in such great conditions at all times, and it's just incredible golf, and good value too. So I've been very happy. My game has improved significantly. So it's a course that's basically technically house lined, but they've done such a fantastic job with the way the course is prepared that to your eye it doesn't look house lined. Like, there's enough trees along the sides that at no point you're really thinking about houses. But one thing that does do is that it's a relatively narrow course, so it's a very unforgiving course, and that has been a really big help to me in terms of making sure that nothing is let go. There's very few shots that you can duff and just go offline on my course at Fairwood that you'll be forgiven for, that you can make it back on a stroke. So that's been really fantastic. The having the country club, being able to play at any time that I feel like on the weekend, being able to have really good practice facilities. The biggest benefit to my golf, in addition to just being able to play, get on, have a good fast round, in 3 hours, is the short game area. So at my municipal, where you see me on the video at Interbay, great driving range, very convenient for me, but the short game area is very, very small, and basically there's only room for 1 or 2 people to be chipping at a time, and it's just not very good. So I much prefer doing short game at Fairwood, and that's where my biggest gains have come, definitely on short game. So accuracy on driver has been very good, but my short game from the country club has been just fantastic. I've got a beautiful short game area, and because the course plays with raised greens that roll very quickly, it can be very important that all your short game is very focused on basically hitting high, soft landing shots that don't roll out. So effectively favors the sort of the lob shots, the shots that go nice and high and basically check up nicely. So it's very good in that regards, but a lot of courses around here aren't as tough as that, and a little bit of bump and run is preferable. So there is a little bit of a gap in my game, so I basically don't have a bump and run. I've been practicing here and there, but given any short game shot, I'm basically looking at putting it nice and high into the air. And quite frankly, those kinds of shots are very, very pretty. So even if it doesn't actually get that close to the pin, most people are sort of pretty pleased. They're sort of like, oh, wow. So Going on to equipment changes. So the Speedblade irons have done very well. Not even once thought, I should be changing up my irons. I did see a pair of RSI, a set of RSIs, and I was a little bit, I would really, those are very, very shiny, as opposed to the matte finish of the Speedblades. I was tempted, but that would be quite frivolous. There's no game reason as to why I should be getting new irons. The wedges have been just fine. The cheap as chips, tailor-made ATVs, like old wedges, they're fine. Like, as far as I can tell, new wedges won't do me any differently. My game isn't that good, so I don't think I'd notice a difference. And as far as I know, I think wedges, it actually doesn't matter. Like, people talk about grooves and stuff like that, but hey, I'm still using pretty cheap balls at the moment. And talking about balls, I've finally weaned off completely from like the ultra cheap end of the spectrum, so I'm not playing any of the top flights or the Wilson, the lower end Wilsons, some of the like Callaway Warbirds or anything like that. They're just way too hard that it's just not enjoyable hitting them, and there's this psychological thing that basically you're just hitting literally a rock. I know it's so cliche, but they're just not worth playing those balls at this stage for me. But it's certainly not worth me spending like $50 a box on balls yet. I do love the Chrome Soft when I can get them, whenever I find one, but just not worth it. So on that front, I've been playing Nike Mojo, I've been playing new balls, but hey, Nike are now out of the game. I can't say that I miss them in terms of their clubs. Like, I've played them, I've demoed them here and there, and they feel awful. That being said, TaylorMade still sells a lot of clubs, and the Aeroburner feels awful. I guess it comes down to performance as well. If you look at My Golf Spy, they do a lot of analysis of golf clubs, like very scientific analysis. And the Nike stuff is just plain weird. They've got like the highest CG of any metal wood. If you don't know what that is, basically the entire industry is trying to move the center of gravity on clubs lower, and this gives you more launch, which is typically what people want, without increased spin. So moving it higher, it just reduces your launch angles or increases spin because you need more loft to get into the air. So it's just terrible, So I don't think anyone's missing them in terms of clubs. I haven't met anyone that are like, ooh, I'm going to really miss their clubs. But I am going to miss their balls. I think at the top end of the spectrum, the Nike resin golf balls were actually pretty good. I mean, this year's ball at very least. And their low-end balls are perfectly fine. Nike Mojo is a great ball, great value ball. But they're out, they're gone. So who knows what's going to happen to any of that stock equipment. I know the drivers sold out so quick, like $150 brand new. That being said, I wouldn't buy it for $150. You can get last year's Cobras for, under $100, which is what my driver is. Cobra Fly Z, it was like $84. So there's no reason to buy a Nike driver just because it was cheap. It's still not a very good driver. You can buy a Callaway that's like 3 years old, it would still be better than the Nike of this year's. But we'll miss the balls. I was like, geez, I wonder what value ball I'm going to be playing, because I don't like Callaway's low-end balls. I'm still a little iffy on the Wilson 50 Elites. Every time I play the 50 Elites, it just feels like I'm not getting as much distance as I would. Maybe it's psychological, but it just never plays out that well. I never get as much distance as I do just playing like a Nike. Kirkland. So Costco have started selling their own branded ball. Now, it might not be in your Costco at the moment, but they are available online. I'm having them shipped to me soon, and they should eventually make their way into all physical Costcos. And this is a great ball. It's a 4-piece ball, so not even 3-piece. Let's go 4-piece. Let's go crazy. And they're from Costco obviously doesn't manufacture it themselves. It's obviously a rebrand. The Kirkland Signature range is always a rebrand, and it's a rebrand of a South Korean company called Nassau. Now, looking at the products that Nassau already sells, the one that matches the specification of the Kirkland ball, is basically a $50 to $80 a dozen ball. It is a premium ball, and at Costco they're going to be selling them for $30 for 2 dozen. That is just unbelievable value for such a high quality ball. So I'm getting those. I hope they arrive tomorrow so I can play them for this weekend's season conclusion tournament, but we'll see. Going on to swing practice and changes. At the start of the year, I had issues with tempo, overswing, sway. The Zepp Golf device completely fixed tempo within like 1 week. Within 1 week of using the Zepp, I had tempo down. Then my swing path, it helped dramatically. Just absolutely dramatically. So that helped in about like the next 2 weeks. And then at that point I was down to sway, which I've, to be honest, struggled with the entire season. So it would come in, come out, so every now and then it would come back, and depending on which club, very, very annoying. I struggled most of the season with chicken winging. You can look at videos what that is. Took me a while to figure it out. I was trying to I gotta keep my arm straight, But what it was, I wasn't turning my hips through the swing. So, not in slow motion, it didn't seem like any problem, but I slow it down just at the impact zone. My hips are slowing down and my arms are having to overtake my body. So the only way that's going to happen is if your left arm bends. So I was chicken winging basically through impact. So I fixed that, so I'm really concentrating thrusting the hips through, and that's fine. So at the moment I'm back to trying to fix sway, and that's where I'm at. So with all of that, I am now 22.5 handicap. So I didn't even come close to my extremely lofty goals of getting down to an 18 handicap. I was very disappointed. The marker at which I was supposed to do that was like the end of July. I was very disappointed that I didn't even really come close. I mean, there was still, at that time, I was actually a 24 handicap, and that's like 6 strokes. So I'd only taken 3 strokes off during the season, and I had another 6 to go. And, this handicap indexing is exponential. Like, it's harder to take off the next 3 than is the previous 3. So it was very, very hard for me to come to grips with the fact that I wasn't going to be turning pro anytime soon. I know that sounds delusional, but I know most golfers have that in their head. And Barney Adams, so founder of TaylorMade, and Adams had a really, really good article about how people should stop trying to pretend that golf is fun. It's not fun. It's not fun in the way that like racing a car is fun. It's fun if you're the kind of person that wants just a never-ending hard challenge, because it's presented there with golf. So I was quite dejected, and I didn't really know what to do. I knew that the amount of time I was spending putting in, and I was foregoing a lot of other things for many months, so nothing on weeknights basically. I was spending all of my time focused on getting better at golf, and it really didn't amount to a heck of a lot. 3 or 4 strokes basically. It was really quite disappointing. And I've never taken many things that casually in my life. I only knew how to do things hard and 100%. But quite frankly, I actually really enjoy golf way too much to just leave it completely and then move on to something else and just go hardcore into something else. So I'm basically still very, very focused on golf. It's just that it's not 100%. So if my muscles are feeling sore, or someone wants to go out for drinks, or I want to go out for dinner somewhere, I won't, make myself feel guilty for not having practiced. I won't beat myself up for it. If I have a bad round, I'm far less concerned about not achieving my goals anymore. So in a lot of respects, I'm now enjoying golf a little more. However, since going quote-unquote casual in July, I have actually improved my handicap just a little bit more. So it was around about 24 in July, and then it came down to a 22.5 more recently, and it's hovering now. Hovering by that, I mean it's gone up to 23 again. But I'm fairly certain that hopefully this weekend I should be able to do a personal best round, playing at somewhere other than my home course, so hopefully a course that's more forgiving. I've re-gripped all of my clubs and they feel just spectacular again. It was an instant improvement on my irons, so my irons are easily my most used and most worn out. They didn't feel worn out, but holy hell, it feels so good to get a brand new set of grips on there at the end of the season. And I decided to use 2 wraps of tape underneath the grip. So anyone doesn't know about club making, there's basically double-sided tape underneath the grip. And one of the customizations you can do is the number of layers, and that'll just make the grip thicker or closer to standard. And I decided that I'd been having a little bit of trouble with my grip, and that I felt that there was just a little bit too much, air between my hand and the grip. I've got relatively large hands. I've tried mid-sized grips before, which are larger than standard, and I really didn't like that. It definitely filled my hand, but I don't know, it just felt like holding a cricket bat. It just felt very wrong. So the feel to me was very wrong. But with 2 wraps of grip, I'm having a lot of fun with the irons. They feel good, they feel soft. I feel far more confident that I can actually get the full distance out of them. That I've got 100% of my, if my body is the engine, then my hands are the transmission. And I felt I was losing a lot there due to shifting around of my right hand, the positioning of my right hand, trying to reduce the amount of air between my hands and the club. So a regrip has done wonders with my irons. It's just immediate improvement. Accuracy is way back, and it feels like I could consistently hit to the full potential. I don't think I'll be longer. It's just that I won't be come up short as often. So it's immediate improvement. I'm having very, very serious issues with my 3-wood. I'm very grateful that the Adams Tight Lies 2 that I've got, I'm actually able to hit that. So the Tight Lies 2, I'm in general able to hit it longer than my 3 hybrid or my other clubs. So basically I can hit it off the deck reliably well. It gets up into the air, but the biggest issue with that is just forgiveness and dispersion. So it gets into the air. So we're talking about an area of bad, which is much better than, say, a high handicapper is used to. So, for example, if you're a high handicapper, you pull out your 3-wood, you swipe at the ball and it goes like 10, 15 yards. That's in the realm of plausibility of what typically happens with a high handicapper, that is a common outcome of hitting a 3-wood. With my Adams Tight Lies, that's basically never happening. I'm never sort of like topping it and just sort of like duffing it and pushing it along the ground. It always gets into the air, but the range in terms of distance goes anywhere between 210 yards, which is fantastic, right down to like 170, which I can hit comfortably with my hybrid. So the distance is very, it could be more useful if I could halve that variance down a bit. It's really quite crazy how much difference there is on strikes that seem good. And in addition to that, I find that the amount of side spin on the ball based on the strike, so where it's coming off the face, relatively unforgiving. So depending on how well I've hit out of the center of the face, there might be just a little bit too much work on the ball. So I've demoed the M2, and the M2 just crushes this. Like, I really didn't want to because the M2 is very expensive. I want there to be a cheap alternative. I tried the AeroBurner. It's the feel of the AeroBurner, the noise that it makes is just, I can't stand it. I'm not a traditionalist, but it's just a weird sound. So I've been keeping my eye on the secondhand market for a TaylorMade M2. I'll pick that up as soon as I can, because on GC2, I can get on the best hits 210 out of my current Adams Tightlies 2, but they drop down to 170 on even good hits, and they go offline quite rapidly. The M2, on the other hand, 205 to 230, so it goes longer. The distance variation is much tighter, and the dispersion was very, very tight, including all types of mishits. It was very, very good. So I can't wait to grab a second-hand M2. So that's what's coming up for me. I don't think there'll be other changes to my bag going into next season. I've got my eye on a Cobra F6 Plus, but I don't think I'd put that in the bag as soon as I get it. The Fly Z with the rear weighting is still going to be good for me for quite a while, I think. I'm hoping to do the country club again, probably hoping to do the league again. I've really been enjoying the league a lot more. As I said, it started off a little bit poorly, but now I'm really enjoying the competition aspect, and I've sort of become more comfortable around strangers in that sort of competitive atmosphere. It's been a lot of fun. Alright, that's all off my chest. I'd be surprised if any of you stuck with me in listening to all of that, but thank you for sticking around. I'll have a few more videos up more frequently, and until next time, see you around.